Dogs in the yard, might need a guard. Every loss, taking to heart. Me first, that cannot be. Must be these underdog episodes, see? Feeling much better, so suddenly. Under the Monica G. Crafted at night while all of them sleep. I won't look a fool, taking this tool. Defeating the opposition around me. No, I'm not sorry. Yes, I'm taking this knowledge and pride. Just barking no harm, don't be startled. Yes, I'm taking the title, and it's so vital. Thanks for the ride, I'll never be idle. Turn up the dial, it's about to get wild. And the points gon' pile up.
Dynasty underdog bite down, up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now. Dynasty underdog bite down, up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 179 of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy Beeman. What's up?
Not much, man. Getting fully into the off season here. You know how it goes. Matt joining the show already. Yo, what's good?
What's up, Matt?
What's good? Yeah, Discord always popping. Jake has us covered. Throw in the YouTube link in there. Yeah, man, we're ready to roll tonight. Let's get it going.
Let's go ahead and hop into some news and nonsense as we do. So the biggest news for us, because this is something that we've all been waiting for a long time, is Arthur Smith got shit canned. So, I guess we'll see. Is he been the problem? I think, we all think that he's kind of been the problem, was kind of gifted that job, was really kind of in over his head to begin with. When you have star players like Pitts, Bijan, and Drake London not performing the way they should, something has to give. You can't cut the players, so you got to cut the coach. And yeah, praise be.
Yeah, great news. Obviously, we need to see, what they plan on doing here, but you got to imagine that it's going to be a coach with a little bit of a different mindset. Somebody who's going to use the star players, somebody who is probably a little bit more forward-thinking, offensive-minded. I mean, Arthur Smith is obviously, former OC, but I think his style is a bit dated. So it'll be good to see, a little bit of change of pace there, and hopefully that whoever it is, including, Arthur Blank and everybody in that organization, hopefully they're prioritizing a quarterback, because I think that's really what we need to make this team whole and get some value out of these guys like Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying that Arthur Smith being gone is going to solve all the problems, but I think it's a hell of a start.
It's a good start. That's for sure.
Same with the next guy, Ron Rivera. He's out in Washington Commanders, new owners, recently new owners. They didn't waste any time in bringing in some outside talent. I forget the guy's name, but the guy kind of helped build the Warriors dynasty in
Rick
the
Spielman?
NBA.
Was it Rick Spielman?
Sure.
I mean, I know they brought Rick Spielman, and I forget if he was the guy who did the dynasty over there.
So I expect Washington to actually take this kind of seriously now. Now that they have new ownership, and I think they probably want to win. So out with Rivera, hell of a career as a coach. Generally, kind of like the guy, beat cancer, all that stuff. But this is the not for long league. Out with the old and with the new.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't seem to get over the hump really, with the Panthers or with the Commanders. He kind of seems to have a limit to his, what his coaching abilities, what they can do with the team or where they can take the team, elevate the team to. So that just kind of seems like, the story of the two tenures. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like they had a decent team at one point, but never a quarterback. So, it's just kind of all fell apart in the end for him. Especially with all the trades that went down, trading away their best defensive players this year and nothing really getting right. You kind of saw it coming with the defensive coordinators getting booted. And then, Ron Rivera was kind of one foot out the door, I feel like, anyway. But, I mean, the guy is an awesome guy. Feels like he's a really good human. So, hopefully he gets a job in the league somewhere else doing, probably a defensive coordinator or something like that.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't think he's like one of those coaches that players didn't like or anything. There's not a whole lot of bad media behind Ron. It just wasn't working out. And that's the key to having a successful business, is to fire people early. So
yeah, it is. They by the way, it was Bob Myers who was the GM, former Warriors GM.
There it is.
That's who they hired.
We'll see how that translates. Obviously he built a very winning culture there up in the Bay Area. We'll see how it works in the NFL. Next one, Carolina, head coach, GM, both gone. Tepper's still the owner. Throwing drinks on fans.
Oof, bad luck.
But I think this is good. I think this is very good. They have a brand new first overall pick quarterback who had a terrible year. Everybody else has to go. All right. You can't just draft another quarterback. Like, you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You have to let him go. And you can't just let the GM go, the head coach go. Like, this seems like the move where you're like, okay, let's reset. I don't think the owner there, I don't think the front office is very good there in Carolina. Like, we saw, now I bring up Baker, get up too off the rails here, but we saw Baker go over to the Buccaneers. It's a pretty good organization. It's been ran fairly well for quite a while now, to be honest with you. And he goes and has one of his best seasons, takes him to the playoffs. Baker, when he was in Carolina, looked like dog shit, and I was ready to give up on him. I think it's a Carolina problem. So out with the old and with the new, let's see what they could do.
Yeah, Tepper may be a little out of his element. Like, he's, former hedge fund manager. I feel like the way he probably ran his former businesses, just his former business in general, was probably a little different than you have to handle things in the NFL with these coaches and players. He kind of seems to be like flying by the seat of his pants a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, I think, problems generally stem from the top. That said, the situation's terrible. Like, every second you're just, it's like the value just drips away from Bryce Young. Like, it's just, it's a really worrisome situation. And I guess, seeing these guys go out the door is a good thing. You just hope that, I guess, this next coaching staff can get Bryce right, because it's really, the outlook's just not great right now.
It's not. But yeah, he was good in college. Like, I mean, I know we said that about a lot of
players are good in college.
Yeah, I know.
Jones is good in college. Like,
I mean, he's a good quarterback. You don't just forget to be a good quarterback. I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe the bright lights are too bright or whatever it is for him. But I mean, he's still a rookie, and I think it's the right move. You can't cut your losses on a quarterback right away without trying to change what's leading the young man first. So,
yeah. God, this is one of those situations I just can't see getting right or better very fast. And things change quickly in the NFL, so maybe it's just kind of a perception thing and holding on to just what this year was. So maybe I shouldn't do that as much, because this certainly there's a window to buy Bryce Young, and it's going to, throughout the offseason. I don't really know if there's going to be much that's going to boost his value up, unless they just make some absolutely smash hirings, like, bring over Ben Johnson from Detroit or whatever it is, and really get some, offensive signings, like whatever they need a lot going on there to, I think, get excited about. So if you are into Bryce Young and in a rebuild, maybe there's a buy low window for you.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of the Trevor Lawrence thing, but that's another thing.
He's not, I think there's a pretty wide gap between those two right now, but yeah.
The other one,
but I know what you mean in terms of I know what you mean.
His rookie year,
the
right?
situation. Yes.
Yeah.
Very bad. No, that's fair. That's fair.
I think if they could bring in a guy that's like Doug Peterson-ish, then maybe we could be a little more excited about Bryce Young, right? Bring in a coordinator that's actually done something in the league, not hiring some college coordinator that they're still paying money to.
Yeah.
All right. Mike Vrabel is out in Tennessee. This one, I mean, at least from an outside looking in type of deal, I didn't really understand. I was talking with my Jaguars buddy, so maybe there's some bias there about Titans in general.
Sure.
Believe it or not. But I was like, isn't it a surprise that, they, fired Vrabel? He's like, well, no. He's like, there, no Tannehill, Derrick Henry. Why even have Vrabel there? Just a full rebuild. So maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if that would be my take. I think that he, outside of, the 1 year where they had that pretty crazy playoff run, I think that his tenure's been pretty underwhelming. They haven't won a ton of games. He's, a little bit like Belichick in that, they play an old school style of offense. They haven't really, I think, progressed to, what the NFL is now, the passing game that it is. And I think that there was decisions that were made that weren't really his, choice. Like, I don't think he was very pleased with the AJ Brown move, trading him away like that.
Good point.
If I remember correctly, he had a pretty sour face when that happened in the draft room. So I think there was a lot going on there. There may have, been some disagreements between him, GM, him, and ownership, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't working out. So it is kind of surprising, but also just kind of as I lay it out, it kind of makes sense. I still think he's a good coach, though. I just think I think his coaching, like Belichick's, is a little outdated. And there's some of those coaches in this league, and he may be better suited as just like a defensive coordinator somewhere. But I think he's a great leader.
Yeah. All right, some injury news. Sam Laporta, I think we all saw what happened and was just like, honestly, initially I thought like something snapped a little bit, like just because like how bendy that section it wasn't like bendy at a joint. It was kind of like bendy at the shin.
At the bone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah. But they're saying he might have a chance to play this week.
I said this. I said this on. I did a podcast last night. Actually, Paul Patterson. He's starting up a new podcast, and I was talking about this last night. I was just like, that would be negligence, in my opinion, if they throw him out there in this playoff game. Like, I get it. It's a playoff game, first one in a long time for the Lions, but this is, your rookie tight end who's, broken all the rookie tight end records. I think you have to be careful with that kind of asset. Like, no matter what, you have to, and it's going to be a tough game. They're going up against Matt Stafford. Like, it's going to be a tough one, and they could use him. But I just, that aside, like, very fortunate to avoid the injury. I really don't think that there is going to be much actionable here in Dynasty. Like, I just think everybody knows that this is an injury that's not going to impact any Dynasty value. So you're not going to be able to buy low or anything.
Yeah, the championships are over. Like, there's no, I got to pivot to get a guy to replace. You don't have to replace Laporta. Like, you have all summer. So
no, and he'll be fine.
But do send offers. Go try to get him for cheap if you can.
Sure. Yeah.
You want? It's probably a waste of time, but give it a shot.
Yeah. Send him. Send away.
All right, AJ Brown injury. That one, even though I'm a Cowboys fan, I just don't like seeing it. AJ Brown knee injury looked, because he's pretty tough, and that was a game that they probably really wanted to win, and he wasn't able to come back in. So that's a bummer.
Yeah, I think this one more than the Laporta injury, actually, that there may be something to do here. You may be able to go out and buy low on AJ Brown. We were just seeing, like, you were sending in some early offseason rankings, wide receiver rankings, and AJ Brown was outside the top 12 because, it's absolutely insane rookie hype season. So this stuff is real. There are people who, are fading these guys who think, 26 is death for wide receivers, and that's running backs, not wide receivers. So, you just, I don't know. This is one where the injury, they're already saying it wasn't that bad. We probably, got lucky with both Laporta and AJ Brown and skirted some really severe injuries here. But AJ Brown, I think, is one this offseason and right now that I'd probably be attacking. Just like, hey, see if you can send a Pickens and a pick for AJ Brown or moves like that. Just try to get it done early in the offseason while everybody's kind of panicking with this injury for AJ Brown. I do think that's real.
Yeah, just like the rankings you were talking about come from another group that does podcasts, and they do some content. But they had Martin Henderson Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze in the top 12 already. And I don't know if I agree with that kind of process.
Yeah, I don't. I can tell you, I definitely don't agree with that process.
I'm not going to hate on them. They put out their own rankings, and typically I don't want to poo-poo on people for that, but I think it's kind of negligent to add the 3 rookie wide receivers to a top 12 list right now. So, especially when you got guys like AJ Brown not on it.
It's insane. How many? JSN, I think, was up in there too ahead of AJ Brown. And I love me some JSN, don't get me wrong, but we're just getting way ahead of ourselves here.
Is that 11?
Yeah, and I get you're trying to kind of like project a little bit into 2024, like what's going to happen. But yeah, it especially the rookies, it's outlandish at best to, assume Neighbors, Odunze, what was it? I don't know what the other one you said was, but Marvin Harrison, I can totally get up in the top 12 for sure. But yeah, man, that blows me away that people are going that far. I mean, there's some really great prospects coming out. Don't get me wrong, but haven't even seen them, touch a field. They haven't even been to the combine. Like, not that matters that much, but we're just so early in the process. Is my point.
All right, ROI. So this is something. This was actually we're probably a week or two late on this, but people talk about ROI. If you're not in the gambling industry, you don't understand what the term is. ROI stands for return on investment. And there were some people, it was a big discussion for a while, which is fun for us on fantasy Twitter, and talking about the importance of following analysts who will show you their ROI, or maybe the belief that analysts should share their ROI, or that it matters at the end of the day. And maybe it does. Like, I understand where he's getting from. Like, you would like to know. I mean, personally, I would love to know the people I take advice from, which is not very many because I'm stubborn.
He won't even take my advice.
I refuse. So, but it would be nice to know, like, okay, do these people really have skin in the game? Are they in a bunch of free leagues, a bunch of analyst leagues, or are they winning money? I guess it matters. Like, are you actually good at what you are out there talking about? I don't know if it's that big a deal. If they're good people and the advice they give you is pretty solid. They play with a oblong ball in American football. It bounces funny, so things weird happen. Referees are involved, and any given Sunday,
and they're 70 years old.
Yeah, any given Sunday, a 70-yard touchdown could be missed by a couple inches. So does that football that was thrown 2 inches too far, cost you a championship and cost you money? Was wrong to start him? Probably not wrong to start him. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. So I think there's just really too much luck involved in Dynasty to be out there policing that analysts should share their ROI. It's a little bit different than like your prop bettors or DFS guys. I think this is a little bit different, but
yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton of luck involved in the fantasy playoffs, which is where the return on investment is coming into play anyway. And then, just from the simplest like piece of the argument, to me, I just think it's funny talking about return on investment in a game where if you don't win it, your return on investment is very low or zero, yes. Right? Like, and that's if you don't come in like second, like maybe third gets your money back, maybe. But like most of the time, you're either getting 1,000% on your investment or you're getting nothing. So it's like to use that as the metric, whether you're good or not as an analyst is definitely not, I think, the way to go. I don't know if there is one metric. I mean, I'd be more concerned if I were to look at any of that stuff. I'd be more concerned with like just overall win percentage year to year.
All play for sure.
Right? Like, right. I mean, or just, definitely all play, but, or just your overall win percentage head to head in your leagues. Like if you play in 10 plus leagues, like that's pretty good sample, I think. And over, you can have context with your tanking teams, but over the large sample, I have a couple tanking teams, and over the large sample, I have a pretty solid win percentage coming out each year. But even that, I think, can be pretty fragile because I think there's a lot of context that is involved in that. There's cycles to Dynasty. All of your Dynasty teams could, be in one rebuild year and ready to go at it again the next year, and that can impact that. But I think what everybody's concerned with is accountability, right? Like that's what people want. People want accountability. I don't think it's really about the actual financial like gains, because like the amount of hours spent here, like you should not be. It's not an efficient way to make money. This game,
no.
You know what I mean? Like making money and making more than your buy-ins is really kind of like a byproduct for me. Like it's more about just like winning and having fun and like the challenge and all that stuff. But accountability is the whole thing. I think we do a good job of that here. I've always prioritized that in terms of like my last article for DFF was what went wrong, right? Talking about some of the things that went wrong in the season. And I think we matched that with a segment on Dynasty Underdog. And we do that all the time. We talk a lot about that. And I think that's what people appreciate. I mean, I've made some boneheaded moves in our Dynasty Underdog listener leagues, and that, you can't really hide from your audience there. And we talk about those on the pod, and we learn from those things, and collectively we learn from those things. And I don't usually make those mistakes again. And I like to think that our listeners kind of follow the same process. And I think that's more when I hear the whole return on investment argument, like I'm like, that's what I think when I try to evaluate, like, am I getting something out of this analyst? Am I getting something out of, following, listening, taking in what this person is saying?
Yeah. And then if we're being honest with ourselves, most of us, what we make per hour at our 9 to 5, and then we add that into our buy-in, none of us are coming out ahead.
Yeah, no.
Let's get it straight.
What does Jay got for us here? We got a comment here on YouTube. I feel like measuring ROI is really down to competition as well. Is that analysts playing in leagues away from other analysts, or are they inundated with playing within the Dynasty analyst? No, I think that's interesting. Like, also people who are putting out their numbers aren't really, you can't validate them. Like, they're not sending you, all of their league links, and you just can't validate them. They could be lying. There's a lot that goes into kind of the, dishing out those numbers specifically. I always more appreciate when somebody's kind of digging into the dirty details like that we don't always like to talk about, where it's bad trades, where it's bad process, where it's, this is what went wrong, and this is kind of how I plan on adjusting in the future. Jake, one more time, winning startups doesn't have that much value in comparison to understanding what that franchise is doing over its history. Yeah, I agree. I think the overall history of any given team in any given league is pretty important to understand. I think Jake does a pretty good job of kind of being a league historian for himself. Like, he goes in, he tries to figure out what everybody is doing, what everybody has done. And I think in doing that, you kind of can see, different paths to how, teams are succeeding. Are they, getting to the playoffs more often than not? Are they getting to, those final rounds more often than not? And you can kind of dig into that. And those are definitely more important than, just a year end's financial gains or return on investment. But I thought it was an interesting argument. Every year it's BMI, it's ROI, it's film versus analytics, it's something. So it was this, and then it was our next one here, leaving leagues, which I saw a couple people leave some leagues and they had none of their picks left. And I saw people getting absolutely roasted for that on Twitter. It's a fun time, man, the off season.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about leaving leagues. Just like
your eyes, like, I leave them all the time, and if you don't like a leave that thing.
I've left 2 leagues in my entire Dynasty career, mostly because they weren't very active. The guys in our Discord that came over with me to hang out, they could attest to that. They stayed because they have better teams than I did.
It's a good reason, to be honest.
But the thing is, it's kind of like what we talk with House. I think he'll say, leave a league, stay in a league, get a startup. Who cares? Like, I get that. I think there is some just not common sense, common courtesy to not just leave behind a team that you just absolutely mortgaged all the picks for, all your 24 picks, 25 picks, and made a bunch of bad trades, and now you have a shitty team and no picks to save yourself, and then you leave. And then you start a startup. It's like, okay, I don't want you anywhere near any of the leagues that I play in.
Yeah.
Like, I would honestly feel like a little bad to do that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it would be really hard for me to just up and do that, especially if they weren't in really good shape. And I was out here trying to give people advice. So, that I think there's some accountability that goes along with that too. You know what I mean? And you kind of have to deal with the repercussions of that, and kind of building yourself back up I guess it really more of your reputation, because it's really more about your personal reputation, like who's going to invite you to leagues. That's what I'm thinking about. It's like you do that and it's going to be hard for you to get in the leagues, and I don't know. But just we've always talked about this, and I think it's a good time to say it. You know, anybody who's getting into startups, who's newer to this stuff, who's in 4 or 5 leagues, just join 1 or 2 every off season. If that's your, if you feel like you're getting addicted to this Dynasty thing, just 1 or 2, man. Like I know people get in 10, 15. They'll just go all in, man. They'll just join tons of leagues, and it's a bad process. It's some people can handle it, but more than not, you're gonna find yourself in over your head, I think. So I just always caution people to not join too many leagues. Myself, I mean, we've been doing this for years now, and I'm in 12, and I feel like that's pretty low for the community and for any content producer, analyst, or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's funny. One last thing, just because I like to be this way, but you don't see any analysts out there saying, "Hey, top 10 steps to being a good Dynasty player," and one of them is join the league, join as many startups as you can, sell all your future picks, and if you don't win a championship, leave it. Like you can't say that out there in the open. You'll get roasted, but you see a lot of actual analysts do it. So anyway, all right. So an interesting trade tactic. What do you got here?
So I've seen people do this, and I mean, I at least think this is what they're doing, but I just wonder if you have seen this, and if you think this is what they're doing, or if you think they just like feel like they made a mistake. But I feel like I'll get trade offers sent to me, especially on Sleeper, where you get them like sent and like you get the notification, and then they'll revoke the trade like really quickly. And I don't think that it's always a mistake. I do think a lot of the times, especially when it's like an enticing trade offer, when it's kind of close, but maybe in their favor still, that they're trying to get your attention and have you respond with a trade offer, a similar offer to the one they just sent, but maybe the same, and maybe they're willing to accept that, but maybe even you think now in your head, just psychologically, they just hit me with that offer. They think that they're overpaying. Wait, maybe I should go send them something similar, but a little bit, they're not sending me as much. I have to give something up, on my side, maybe a third, fourth, whatever it is. Do you think that that's like a tactic? Because I really think that that's what's going on sometimes when I get those offers and they get revoked.
I think it's both. I think there probably is some of that. Like, I'm going to send them this offer. No, I'm going to take it back. And hopefully I get, this opens up some sort of trade dialogue or some sort of counter or something like that. Mm-hmm. I absolutely get that. I don't personally do that, but I can see it. But what I have done plenty of times is send an offer and been like, no, I don't like this, and I'll revoke it right away.
Okay.
Whenever I revoke an offer, I'm revoking it because I've come to my senses or whatever, or I've changed my mind. But yeah, absolutely. I'm sure people do that.
Yeah. I don't think I've used that. I mean, me.
I don't know if it's effective or not, but
yeah, no, I mean, I think it can't. I think people can be susceptible to that kind of tactic. I don't think I've ever used it myself, and me, like I'm open to using pretty much anything, but that's just one that like I think you'd have to really mix it in sparsely throughout like your normal like trade offers and stuff like that to actually have it work, because you can't do it too often, because then I'm like, stop doing this. Like there's something going on here. You know what I mean? But I really do think that there's something to it, because I do think people, get kind of like excited about getting an offer, especially one that has like good assets coming their way. Even if it's, a low ball offer on like a really, high end asset, then gets your juices flowing and you're like, wait, maybe we got something going here. So I do think that it's something that can work on certain people. Maybe not us, but it not for any reason specifically, but I just think that people can be open to that.
Absolutely. All right. Like this Josh Down season.
Kid looked pretty good at the end of the year here, even with, Gardner Minshew as his.
What do you mean even with?
Excuse me. Don't let me besmirch Gardner Minshew's name here, but 68 receptions on 98 targets, 771 yards, 2 touchdowns. A little light on those touchdowns there, but that's, rookie season. Really can't expect too much more. 7.9 yards per target. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like what I'm seeing.
Yes. I mean, I like Josh Downs as a prospect to begin with. Can't understand what the deal was, why I kind of faded him in rookie drafts. It has nothing to do with me not liking him. I've always liked Josh Downs. Maybe it's just where he was going.
Part of it was draft capital for sure.
Yeah, there was something there that I'm like, dang, love the kid though. He broke over 700 yards in his rookie year. I think Papa Smurf has done some research on that, along with JJ Zachariason. And 700 yards is pretty good for Ricky. There's a good chance that his startup ADP will actually be higher than it was last year based off of this, or at least not be much less. And that's kind of one of those things that historically we're looking for. So, yeah, Josh Downs is a dude that, like, come rookie drafts, I might try to send off one of my picks for and let somebody take the rookie.
Would you send an early second?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you were essentially going to have to get. That's where you were going to get him in the draft, this past year. So I think that I'd feel comfortable doing that, given, we've seen him be fairly successful year one here. I like that. I like that stat line from him. I think he's approaching some pretty good thresholds there for year one production. So yeah, I like what I see from him. I think Anthony Richardson can elevate him as an asset. I mean, he second. Yeah, I think I would do that. I like that second round pick for Josh Downs for sure.
It depends on how the board falls, but yeah, like if it's a 203 or something, I'll probably do it. If there's no quarterback there.
Yeah, you could probably wait. Like you said, you could probably wait till rookie draft season, so you don't need to rush that either.
I would advise to.
Yeah,
actually. So, Jaden Reed, what we got here?
Yeah, courtesy of Jax Falcone at Dino Game Theory on Twitter. He pulled up a list here. I thought this was pretty interesting. So his criteria here was 750 plus receiving yards, 8.0 plus yards per target, 100 plus rushing yards. And the comps for that ended up being Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore, Percy Harvin, and Jaden Reed. And that's rookie. That was for rookie season, obviously. That's impressive. Yeah. Like, those are all great players. Percy Harvin being, the worst of the bunch prior to Jaden Reed coming in. And, using the word worse here, doesn't quite fit, because Percy Harvin's a really good player in his own right. Not nearly as good as Deebo. Oh, he was so fun to watch. I think injuries and there was some, I think, off the field stuff with him that kind of hindered his on-field success. But Jaden Reed looks absolutely, Jaden Reed looks electric. He looks incredible. I mean, he had I think he had 8 touchdowns this year as a rookie, which is, pretty special. So yeah, I'd be really excited about what we're to expect of Jaden Reed going forward, especially with Jordan Love playing the way he's playing. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Just going to say that quarterback is starting to look pretty good. So, darn it. All right, cool. So, players to fade for good. I kind of like this.
For good.
For good. I like this because it's like kind of final. Like, you're saying, hey, get this guy off my roster. I'm done with him. Maybe he does something, but I'm really going to move on. And the first one that you got up here is Greg Dulcich.
I heard some whispers about it is unfortunate. I have nothing against I actually was a big Dulcich fader coming out. I was like, Daniel Jeremiah is trying to prop this guy up for no reason, coming out of UCLA. Just he really just never had the juice to me. And like, he's an awkward runner. I just think he's just not a very smooth athlete. He can be dynamic, but he's just not a very smooth athlete. And that always stuck with me with Greg Dulcich. But that said, I just think that the situation here has gotten so poor. It's hard for me to see, how he's going to succeed long-term. And I know obviously tight ends can take a while to break out, but it's also, I think, the landscape too. It's like, there's so many good young tight ends that entered the league this year, and there's a couple that are going to come into the league, and there are some fading out, but I think there's more, taking over those top spots than not. And it's like, where can Dulcich really fall in? And can that team ever even get right within his window? It just, none of it really makes sense to me. And I heard some whispers of some people, saying, hey, Dolchich season again this offseason. And I think I'm here to fight against that.
Yeah, I got nothing much more to add. Yeah, I had a chance to trade, I think, Waller for Dolchich straight up, or Waller for Dolchich in like a third or something like that. And almost pulled the trigger. It was actually you guys, I believe. I asked about it. You said, don't do it. And I'm pretty glad I did. It has a lot to do with what's going on with the team. Like,
yeah,
don't know what direction they're going. So there's no reason I'm trying to invest in this player. So, all right. Too early for Tank Bigsby?
Not for me. I think I'm out. 50 attempts, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I know he fumbled the ball twice, and 2.6 yards per attempt. I mean, I'm not a yards per attempt guy, but when it's 2.6, it's bad enough to mention. So, it's. Year one, when you don't get any run as a running back in a room that really kind of needs you, and you have D'Ernest Johnson, securing a rollover, it's over, right?
Yeah. The only thing, normally I'd say yes, 100%, unequivocally, 100%. But I'm wondering. What we saw from Chuba Hubbard is kind of what I'm wondering. So we kind of had penciled in Miles Sanders as a starter there, going to get a ton of carries. And Chuba absolutely had a terrible year last year. Didn't look like the player he was in college, not his senior year or final year, but the year before. But he comes and he just steals the job from Miles Sanders, and Chuba Hubbard becomes a very valuable player for your roster this year. I'm wondering if Tank Bigsby has a shot at doing that.
I mean, it's
long shot, probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. But I'm just looking at Chuba's rookie year: 172 attempts, 612 for 5 touchdowns.
Oh.
Second year, 95, 466 and 2. And this year, 238, 902 and 5. 3.6 per attempt. And again, I'm going like really baseline stats here. I'm not getting into the advanced metrics, but just looking at that, he's been a much better player from jump than Tank Bigsby.
All right, fair enough. Speaking of Miles Sanders, players to fade for good. Yes, Miles Sanders, fade him.
It's been over for me since Philly days, but I mean, again, I don't think Chuba's anybody to write home about, and he made Miles Sanders look pathetic this year. Miles Sanders put up 432 yards on 129 carries, 1 touchdown, 3.3 per attempt. I mean, the running game there is just terrible, but Chuba made much more out of nothing than Miles Sanders. And this is going back, again, to the Philly days. I saw him drop balls this year again, in the passing game, which has really, been a big issue for him his whole career. So I'm done with Miles Sanders. I this year, honestly, like before the year, I remember talking about it. I was like, I don't see how he doesn't get, 230 plus carries and yada, yada, yada. And I now can see how that would happen. Chuba Hubbard would be better than him. And he would just be really, really awful on the touches he did receive. So yeah, I'm out.
Yep. Next one hurts, but I'm here with you. Rondale Moore. We've had enough time. Was this 3rd year now?
Yeah. And
I really like Rondale Moore. I love him as a prospect. I love that he's short because that's my people's. But he just, when he makes a catch, and he scores on a play or whatever, I'm still going to be like, that's my boy. But if I could find someone who likes him more than I am, I'm going to get off of him.
Yeah, and I think there are some of those people out there. I mean, he's still young, 23 years old, but
yeah,
he can be a big play threat here and there. But I like what I've seen out of Michael Wilson. I think that he'll be the wide receiver 2 there next year. So you really have a slot guy here who's kind of a flex play here and there. And, with Trey McBride, like he's not going to be the first read in those short area targets anyway. So his upside is pretty limited to, boom bust. Like he's a best ball guy,
Yeah. All right, last one here, Tony Pollard.
Oh, this is the one.
This is I think probably unless you were going all the way to your championship this year and being in the championship game, I think Tony Pollard is a player that you probably should have got off your roster at some point. I mean, depending on when your trade deadline was and all that other stuff, but along with like Austin Eckler, if you're still rostering Austin Eckler and you weren't in the championship, I think you messed up. But yeah, Tony Pollard, he looked a little bit better as the season went on, but it's just not that thunder and lightning. The role that he was in before was better. Being a workhorse just hasn't quite worked out for him. I know he's coming back from a broken leg. Oh, we got to give him that, but the years are mounting up, and you could already see by these stats that you have here that he's kind of fizzling. You want to go through them?
Yeah, way to call me out on the Austin Eckler stuff, bro. Like, geez,
I'm just
man,
saying.
I got at least 2 or 3 rosters with him.
It wasn't personal. Hey, did you go to the championships with him?
In 2 of them, I think.
So there you go. That's fine.
I think I have like 4 shares, and I do actually think like the majority either were in the semis or in the finals. Yeah, but
that's fine.
I think he was on my bench in those games, so it didn't go the way that I intended. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But Tony Pollard here, this is the one that I'm most excited to talk about, and I don't I don't want to sound like, I feel like that sounds terrible, right? Like I'm excited to tell you that I'm done with this player forever, and that I think his career is not going to go better than what we've seen before. But that's not really what I mean. Just from a fantasy perspective, I'm really out on Tony Pollard. I always have been. It's interesting though. I mentioned I was on the podcast with Paul last night, and he seems to still have some love for Pollard. Think that he can fall into a role like a James Conner or something on another team where he again falls into a lead role. But I don't have the James Conner stuff up in front of me, but I know that James Conner has been a much more effective, efficient running back, for the past couple of years. And this year he was electric. So probably wouldn't even be a comparison there. And I don't see that in Tony Pollard personally, but just going through the numbers here, 2.92 yards after contact per attempt. That was like 18th among running backs with at least like 150 carries. Not good. It's just not good. And if you take that filter off, he's like way down the list. But that's verse 3.82 yards after contact per attempt from 2022. So a pretty sharp decline there. Yards per route run 0.78 this year versus 1.51 in 2022. Big dip. And then elusive rating, which tries to eliminate offensive line play and just really account for what the running back is doing. 48.5 versus 78.2 in 2022. So really by any metric you go and look at, Tony Pollard took a pretty big step back. And again, we don't know exactly what the reason for that is. It could be that, he can't manage a full workload, right? It could be that, again, he's better when schemed, running outside zone plays, and he's, not great when he has to take it between the tackles, and he's had to do both this year, right? So it could be a slew of different reasons. Not exactly sure why, but it just seems like the bottom line is when Tony Pollard is the lead running back without, much help, it's not going to go well. So I'm out because I think that, the rest of his career, either he does end up in another situation like this, and the one he's in is great, by the way. I don't think he's going to end up in a better situation than the one he's in this year. So wherever he goes, if he is the lead back, I don't think it'll be, what you're expecting. And if he doesn't, and he's in another timeshare, he's just going to go back to being kind of a running back too. And he's 27 years old. So you got to get out from these kind of players, I think, at this point.
Yeah, that's something that we talked about. Everybody wanted to see Zeke on and Tony Pollard as the lead back. And I get that based off of how efficient he was. But the fact of the matter was, coming into the year, he's still, quote unquote, going to be an old running back. It seems like he's new and fresh because he's new with the lead role, but he's not. He's got a lot of years on him. It's his 5th season. So,
yeah.
it's inevitable.
Like, would you take Christian Kirk or Terry McLaurin over Tony Pollard at this point?
I mean, if I had other running backs on my league, I mean, that might be something I'd look to do. Something
What
like
about
that, maybe.
what about moving over to like a Jalen Warren?
I'd do that in a heartbeat.
See, I said that too, and Paul was like, he kind of scoffed at me, like, aren't they the same player, or isn't Jalen Warren like Tony Pollard 2.0? And he kind of, yeah, he
Yeah.
is. He's 25, but you're buying a year or two back on him, and yeah, he is a similar guy, but I don't know if he's going to get a lead role anywhere. So he might, maintain the role he has, which is pretty damn good for fantasy. I would love to see him back in like the same exact situation. I think honestly, I think the situation he's in right now with Najee Harris is great. And I always wonder if Jalen Warren got his own role, would it be similar to what we're seeing from Tony Pollard?
I bet it would.
Yeah.
So, I bet it'd be very similar.
So, yeah, I mean, I do think I would make that shift because I think you're buying some years back, Tony Pollard to Jalen Warren. And I also think you probably could get a plus on Jalen Warren potentially. I do think they're ranked nearly like the same in KTC, but I think I do think there's a perception that Pollard is a much better running back, and that, I mean, this year he did. I should mention he did get unlucky with touchdowns. He was on the goal line. I mean, you know this probably better than anybody. He was on the goal line plenty of times, and couldn't punch it in, or just didn't punch it in for whatever reason. That probably returns to the mean a little bit, regresses to the mean a little bit next year. But I still, a year older, same player he is, I'm out.
Yeah. And we don't know who Tony Pollard's going to be playing for next year. He's on the franchise tag, so anything can happen. In general, the Dallas Cowboys red zone wasn't super pretty. It worked. It was fine, but there's a lot of meat left on the bone there. Okay. Want to hop into trades and non-trades?
Absolutely.
Let's
ready for it.
I don't have any. I have some offers I should have put down, but
that's okay. Save them for next week when we got Jake on.
Jake.
Yeah, Jake's coming on next week. He couldn't make his normal appearance, but that's gonna be fun. I think we have some under the hood stuff that I haven't put in here, but we do have some stuff here already that I'm excited to talk about. So that'll be fun. I have a couple trades here. I hit the offseason running. I got a couple done in the DU leagues. This first one I think is DU1 with our boy Dylan, always active, always ready to get a deal done. This is an interesting one. So I sent, I guess I should put a little bit of context around it. My DU1 team, I won 2 years ago. Pretty old team. I mean, two of the assets that I'm talking about here, Kelsey, Ridley. I have, I think, Keenan Allen on this team. I do think Austin Eckler is on this team. And I think I'm missing potentially a quarterback going into next year just based on how it all went. So I see myself needing to kind of churn this team, maybe quick rebuild, something like that. So moving off of Kelsey and Ridley, I sent Kelsey and Calvin Ridley plus a third, and I think it was a 408 this year, a third next year for the 112 and a 25 second. How do you feel about that?
I wonder what the team looked like that you trade. I didn't really take a look, but it seems like you should be able to get more for Kelsey Ridley, a third or fourth. But for what you're trying to do, this is probably the easiest, fastest way to get it done.
I kind of agree with you there. And Dylan has a ton of picks. I could have. Wait, was this Dylan? Yeah, this was Dylan. Yeah, it was Dylan. He has a ton of picks. I probably could have pushed for something, but he's a pretty tough negotiator, and I think with Kelsey, you're a little bit at a disadvantage right now. I mean, I do think that one of those two assets could bust, and that's kind of the bet I'm making, right? Is that, Kelsey at 35 just can't really be the difference maker at tight end that he once was. I mean, he kind of wasn't this year, even though he had another good year. So I'm kind of making that bet and, trying to pick up some youth on this team, replenish some picks because I don't really have any. And there's another move, I think, the next trade here. I made a couple deals here. So let's see. On top of that one, I then also sent away. Oh, I had Stephon Diggs on that team. Yeah, okay. I also had Stephon Diggs. Maybe not Keenan Allen. I forgot which one. Maybe I had both. But I sent away Stephon Diggs. This is DU2. So this isn't the same league. So different league, DU2. I sent away Stephon Diggs Nope, not DU2, DU3. Stephon Diggs, McLaughlin, the running back for Denver. McLaughlin, I don't know how you say his name. Plus McLaughlin, yeah. Okay, so Diggs, McLaughlin, a 25-second for the 110, and Tony Pollard, who I said I'm so done with.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah, this is good for you.
Yeah, I like this one. I think getting out of Diggs, trying to pick up, a player at the 110. I don't know why I do feel like this is DU1. I'm tripping. I think it is DU1, but either way,
I'll tell you. At first, I had read it as McLaurin. I was like, "Ooh,
no, it's the Denver running back."
Come on, guys.
Yeah, Diggs, McLaughlin, and a 25-second for 110 and Pollard. So really, my idea here is trying to kind of replace Diggs with the 110 most likely, or I think I have another first in there, so I can try to get one of the receivers at the back end of the first here to replace Diggs on his way out, and then Pollard I'm obviously going to try to get my second back with, essentially. Maybe a second this year instead of 25, but my idea was to kind of use Pollard as a trade piece.
Love it. I'm sure you'll get something done. You always do.
All right, this last one here was a non-trade. I'm interested in your thoughts on this offer. JSN, the 108 and a 25 first for Jamar Chase.
I mean, if you're still trying to win, I think Chase is kind of the thing. I love JSN. I think he's going to be a stud. 108 is going to get you a pretty good player. And then you get another player in 25 eventually. But I think Chase helps you win now, and he's very young. I just don't see how you could trade away questionably, the Dynasty wide receiver 1 through 3, however you want to put it, for JSN, mystery box, and a mystery box next year. It's close. Like, if this got accepted, if this trade happened, like, I totally understand it, but I think I couldn't see myself trading away Chase quite for that.
Yeah, I think that's the right take personally, and I think that it might be further away than you're even really alluding to here. Like, I think that it's at the very least you need to be at 104 instead of 108 there. So JSN 104 sure. And a 25 first, where you're at least in the quarterback potential Marvin Harrison range, depending on how it falls there. But I think you need to be in that range to be trading away Chase in how stable of an asset he is. But even then, I'm not sure. Like, I think still you can add a second onto it, and then I'd be like, all right, this makes some sense because we need to rebuild, we need to churn, whatever it is. But otherwise, if that's not, if you don't need to build capital, really, I don't really think it's enough to move off of Chase. I think you need to be absolutely wowed, like really, really wowed to move off a guy like that, because, even if there was another first in there, all three of those could be misses. You know what I mean? It's unlikely. Obviously, you're more likely than not to, get one or two hits out of there, but it's possible that you miss on, three of those guys or two of those guys. And JSN isn't a superstar. Like, JSN has not once, I think, scored over 20 points yet. And, Jamar Chase is like a 20-plus point scoring machine. So, even just the wide gap between those two assets for me makes it hard to get that done. And I was kind of like laughed at for declining the trade. So I don't think that it's very close, in my opinion. I think there's a good deal of work to be done on the pick side of that trade.
Cool. Well, that was easy. Anything else you want to talk about?
I do want to mention that both of those trades, by the way, the first ones we talked about, the Kelsey Ridley one and the Diggs one, were both in DU1. So I did acquire the 112, the 110 Pollard, and the 25 second for those pieces. And I think that's like a pretty good deal for the bunch of assets I moved on from. And I think I'll be able to spin Pollard and some of my other players to acquire some more picks and get right back in the running. In this one, I like Ridley. I do think that he's going to be a pretty good player this coming year, but I think there's a lot of fragility in those two assets in Kelsey Ridley and even Diggs. So I'm trying to get ahead of it for sure. Kind of lose a trade now, you're going to win in 6 months deal,
Absolutely.
Last thing I want to mention, join our Discord, hop in there. Sundays, it's a special event in the Discord, but in the off season, like we have a lot of stuff coming. I'm going to be dropping a rankings channel in there soon. We have a ranking sheet that we're going to be keeping updated, and I'm going to be dropping in there that you guys can follow along with if you're in our Discord, and a bunch of other stuff will be coming out. And the place to find it is really our Discord or on Twitter, but really mainly the Discord. So hop in there and join us.
All right. With that, follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Underdog, at Uriah Dawkins, at Willie Beeman DFF. Obviously, join our Discord, like you said. Check us out on YouTube. When we do these live, they are there, and I'm pretty sure you can watch them afterwards as well. If you're listening to us via podcast, please listen to us on Spotify if you can. Other than that, have a good night.
Be easy.